Welcome to the 30th annual Moses Organic Farming Conference. We're so glad you made it here. Did everyone make it through the snow? Did you all do okay? Yeah, you're a hardy bunch. I'm not too worried about you. So before we begin our program, I have a special guest who would like to say a few words. Tammy Baldwin is a U.S. Senator representing Wisconsin and Washington, but she's also doing a great job representing the interests of all the farmers in this room. In the Farm Bill, she authored key reforms for dairy producers and other farmers in crisis. She's also championed the Organic Farmer and Consumer Protection Act, giving the USDA stronger teeth to crack down on some fraudulent imports. I'm going to start by just welcoming Tammy Baldwin up here.
Thank you. Oh, wow, what a wonderful welcome. Thank you. So I want to thank you and the fantastic team here at Moses today for allowing me to say a few words of welcome. As all of you, I hope, know, Wisconsin is second in the nation in organic farming. And while, little Wisconsin. And while California may have beat us in the number of organic farms, I think we can all agree that Wisconsin is home to the happiest cows. Okay, so last year in Congress, we had a major bipartisan victory with the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill. Our organic family farmers work extremely hard to meet the USDA's organic standards. And that's why I led the Organic Farmer and Consumer Protection Act. We did this to make sure that all organic imports have to meet the same rigorous standards that you do every day. And now that this reform is law, we are going to crack down on fraudulent foreign imports. The products that claim to be organic. And we also need to level the playing field to make sure that everybody is playing by the same rules. This is a win for organic farmers and for American consumers who know and trust the organic seal. I'm also proud to work with all of you to advocate for public research in plant varieties that can help, let's give it up for public research, that can help respond to regional variations in climate and cropping systems. With my Seeds for the Future Act, I'm pressing to make sure more of the money we invest in agricultural research results in practical tools that our diversified farms can use. And with extreme weather patterns increasing, we've got to increase the pace of this research so that our farmers have the tools they need to adapt and keep their businesses thriving. The 2018 Farm Bill and recently passed funding bill included major investments in the tools that our organic farmers use to improve their farming systems, while also caring for our land, our water, and the well-being of our animals. With added investments in the Sustainable Agriculture Research Education, or SAR program, as well as organic extension and research funding, we can build on the incredible contributions of the people in this very room and ensure that the spirit of organic agriculture's cooperation and innovation continues well into the future. I am incredibly proud to represent Wisconsin's organic farmers, and I thank you for having me here today. I wish you all a productive conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you. and I'll take that from you. Hi. So I'm Lauren. I don't know if you know me, but I'm the program director here at Moses. And I'm just here to welcome you. At the conference kickoff last night, we honored two people who've had a huge impact on our organic world. Would our 2019 Organic Farmers of the Year please stand? Jim Riddle and Joyce Ford of Blue Fruit Farm. Thank you for all that you've done for us, for organic farmers, for our community. We really appreciate everything that you've created, helping to improve systems and better our communities. So thank you for everything. But you know, our community also lost a couple of farmers this year. Farmers who will leave lasting impacts on Moses in particular, and the organic community at large. The first is Doug Gunnick. He passed away in January. He had a long history in the organic world, where he started as an Organic Valley's first dairy inspector, and he was a founding member of the Moses Board of Directors. The Gunnicks also organized the Minnesota Organic Conference in its early years and have left a lasting impact on our community. Chris Blanchard is the other person we would like to recognize tonight. He passed away last fall, and he's had a huge part in making Moses what it is today, the conference in particular. He was a co-director of the conference for many years. He organized workshops, and his own workshops were among our most popular every year, just wildly popular. His reputation was for a down-to-earth farmer who was willing and able to give information that was honest, and farmers appreciate that. People are showing their respect to Chris by donating to the Chris Blanchard Scholarship Fund. With that scholarship fund, in just 4 months, it's already grown to $10,000. And there are 3 farmers here just this weekend who are learning, thanks to Chris's memory. And so we hope that over the years, many more farmers will be able to come to the conference and learn in Chris's memory and continue to grow our wonderful community. Tributes to both of these men are available in the lobby, just kind of to the back of the conference, the general session hall here. So please feel free to share memories in the books provided by their families there, and take time to tell your stories and make new memories with friends around the conference in their memory. Now for a few quick announcements. The first and most important thing is that I hope you've picked up a conference program. They're available up at the registration desk. You should have got one when you got your name badge. And if you didn't, you can also download the conference app, which has the same information but in an interactive format. The program has a schedule at a glance right inside the front cover. And toward the center of it, you'll find a map of the whole facility. And on the back, you'll find upcoming field days. In between those things, you'll find all sorts of good information, from contact information for presenters and sponsors and exhibitors to descriptions of all of our workshops. So make sure that you use that. You can even take notes in it, bring it home, and use it to start your planning for the coming year. As I mentioned, you can also download the Moses app where that information is available. And in the app, you can post to the social wall. If your social feed is elsewhere, if you aren't in the app, but you're on Twitter, Instagram, or somewhere else, please use hashtag Moses2019. And hashtag, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this. Yes, the hashtag will populate into the app so we can all participate together. So it's part of our community building. Thank you for that. And also, we have a few fun things available here as far as Moses is concerned. You can pick up a conference mug either in the bookstore just to the back here and up the escalator, or over by the info desk by the dining hall. They're only $5 and they're already washed, they're ready to use. So you can stop using paper cups and take advantage of that. You can also pick up a t-shirt. They are 100% organic and they're made right here in the USA, which is very important to us. Yeah, and they're pretty too. Yeah, there's that. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know about that program is that if you open it up to the last page inside the back cover, you'll see what community really looks like. I just want to take a minute to sincerely and humbly thank all of the sponsors that help us make this event affordable for our farmers. It takes a lot to put on something as big and complex as this event, and without their help, we wouldn't be very successful at it. So I'm going to read a couple of them off really quick. I'd like to thank Blue River Organic Seed, Organic Valley, Organic Prairie. I'd like to thank Kubota, Land Pride, Great Plains, Patagonia, Sitka Salmon, who's actually feeding us dinner tonight, think about that, Valent, and also Peace Coffee has a cafe that's upstairs on the concourse on the far end, and that's a really fun place to hang out. If you haven't checked it out, you should maybe make a little bit of time for that, meet up with a friend, and have that cup of coffee you've been meaning to have. On top of all of our wonderful sponsors, our community is really supported by a huge horde of amazing volunteers. You'll see them with green ribbons on their name badge. They're all over the place. They're our green force, and they are making all of this happen. Our little staff could not do this without them, and I actually want to give a round of applause to both the sponsors and those volunteers. Thank you so much. As with everything that's worth doing, it takes a whole community. So no matter how you support, we appreciate your contributions to Moses. And finally, one more big thanks is to all of the really wonderful presenters that we have here this year. They offer their insights and their experiences, and they share with us knowledge that we wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. The peer-to-peer nature of Moses is so exciting. As a farmer myself, I listened to those recordings all summer long, and I'm just wowed by the knowledge that is in this building today. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. And then, as a sort of thank you and also a little bit of an introduction, I would like to thank and recognize the Moses Board of Directors. If you would all stand, please, I would appreciate that. You'll see them around the conference with black ribbons on. You can also find them on our website if you want to actually see their faces a little bit better. But we encourage you to find them at the conference and tell them what you appreciate, tell them what you'd like to see. These are volunteer board members. They're also mostly farmers themselves, and they really put a lot of effort into this organization. So thank you to our board. And I would, yeah. And I would like to take that opportunity to invite one of our board members, Sylvia, up to the stage. And our panelists.
Well, it's so nice to see everyone in their seats. Good to see you. I'm Sylvia Burgos Toftness. With my husband David, we raise 100% grass-fed beef on MOSA certified pastures. Our hayfield is MOSA certified, and so are our 2 rows of wine grapes. So very grateful for that work. You know, in let's call it 1985, I did not know what certified organic farming was. I had my copy of Rodale's magazine, Organic Gardening, that came every month, and from that, I kind of ripped up more and more of my lawn in South Minneapolis and put it to plants. What I didn't know back in 1980s has turned out to be what I am now. And it's due in great part to the people that you see here. I came into the organic community as a public relations executive and practitioner, just as the Organic Foods Act was coming into being. There were many certification organizations at that time throughout the United States, and they came together for the sake of farmers and for the sake of consumers to develop what became the Organic Foods Act of 1990. They said farmers have to have this and the consumer deserves this. That collaboration for me was mind-blowing, to have such disparate organizations decide this is best for the United States of America. These are some of the people that actually laid the foundation for the organic label that we enjoy today. And I know there are many of you also in the room that were important parts of that foundation, so I just want to acknowledge and applaud you right from the beginning. Thank you for this work that you've done. But the organic label and the organic certification isn't just about what happened in 1980 or 1975. It's about what's happening here today and going forward. So we have people here who played huge roles in laying the groundwork, have played major roles in expanding the organic farming community, and are also working to help with you push things into the future. So let me just introduce who we've got here. All right, going from your left to your right, we've got George Siemon, who is an early organizer of Organic Valley and serves as its, give me your title.
CEO, but they say CEIEO or something like that.
Yeah, when I saw that on his card, I thought, oh, this is going to be good. Okay. And he's been influential in the organic farming movement, an important word, I think, to keep kind of at the top of our minds, and helped grow the organic dairy movement throughout the United States. He has also served on the National Organic Standards Board. Then we have Audrey Arner, who practices perennial polyculture on her farm in Minnesota, has grass-fed beef, fruits, nuts, ornamentals, medicinals, and also combines this and interlaces this with amazing art and farm stays. She served on the Moses Board of Directors for 6 years and was its president from 2008 to 2010, which was a crux year, a kind of a time when Moses changed a bit. Then we have Francis Thicke, who has a doctorate in soil science and has been an organic dairy farmer for over 30 years. He was the national program leader for soil science with USDA Extension Service. He also served on the National Organic Standards Board and was on the first Moses Board of Directors. And then we have Faye Jones. So who here doesn't know who Faye Jones is? Yes. Yeah, I didn't even know where to start, Faye. I mean, you've been so instrumental to the growth of organics and Moses for over a quarter century. Talk about foundationals. Here we've got a capstone, a keystone. And she raises grass-fed beef. And we've known each other since Moses was in a trailer on your property, and our little girls were running around. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Then we have Atina Diffley, who's an organic farmer, farm educator, and the author of Turn Here Sweet Corn, Organic Farming Works. She and her husband ran Gardens of Egan, one of the first certified organic produce farms in the Midwest. Atina also served on the Moses Board during an important time of its growth. Growth together, movement forward. I think some of these are the ideas that we'll be going forward with. And then we've got Jim Riddle, who, thank goodness, has been recognized numbers of times at the conference already, and he helped shape the country's organic standards in the 1990s and served on the National Organic Standard Board in the 2000s. He helped found the International Organic Inspections Association, we're known as Farmers Market and the Organic Farmers Association. Jim and his wife, Joyce Ford, own Blue Fruit Farm. And of course, they are this year's Organic Farmers of the Year. These are your panel. So Jim, we're going to start with you. And again, so the framework is stuff in the past and pulling things into today and into the future. So what are some of those major ideas that kind of run through your head? And of course, this is a panel of just an hour. Here we've got people that we could spend a weekend with easily. So this will be the challenge, and we're asking for some of those kind of major thoughts and highlights.
Yeah, well, I see the growth of the organic movement has been a very organic growth, really rooted in the grassroots, and farmers sharing knowledge, sharing resources with each other. And some of my first exposure to organic methods was really not called organic, but it's the natural farming. There were natural farmers associations, field days, and people in buying clubs and very early food co-ops looking for this kind of food grown naturally. It was really, out of Pennsylvania and the Rodale Institute, J.I. Rodale, that coined the phrase organic farming and started, putting some definitions to that, to what it means. And then, independent of one another, people in California, Oregon, the Northeast, Midwest, started seeing, there's neighbors, there's other farmers that are interested in this, and there's some limited market, but we need to set some standards. And so standards were being developed in these different kind of hotbed areas, really independent of one another. So that kind of knowledge and definitions were similar, but quite different as well. So first it was nonprofit groups, farmers organizations such as the Organic Growers and Buyers Association, one of the first certifiers in the country, but located in Minnesota, was setting standards. But you had CCOF, California Certified Organic Farmers there. They required a 1-year transition. We said land needed to be free of chemicals for 3 years. So there were some substantive differences in these private standards. So some states then started to get involved to put legal definitions in place for what organic meant in their states. And as the demand grew, as the number of farmers grew, there eventually became 30 states that had their own definitions, as well as the private organizations that were really doing the bulk of the certification work. So that led a number of us to go to Washington, D.C. In the late 80s and say, please regulate us. Yeah. There aren't a lot of industries that go to D.C. and say, please pass a law to regulate our industry, but we did. It took quite a while to get that ironed out and passed. In 1990 is when it was passed, but then it took 12 more years before the rules to actually get implemented. In 2002 is when the National Organic Program standards actually were implemented. But I think the important takeaway for me is to stay true to our roots and to continue to own this word. Yes, we went to the government. Yes, the government responded, passed a law, passed regulations, but it's still our word. It's still our regulation. And if we say, oh, it belongs to USDA, and we walk away, we've given it away. The only way we can protect it and make sure that it's being properly enforced, that it's the research complies with it and all this, is to stay engaged. So I'm so excited when there's young people. I mean, I totally respect, I'm honored to be up here with all of you, but we need the youth who are interested in policy. It's fun to farm, but somebody also has to pay attention to the regulations, the details, and all of that. So that's just one of the things. But I know, Atina, you had some other thoughts on this that I'd love to hear you share.
Thanks, Jim. So what is this all about? We're drawing on the power of relationship. And all of you out there know this. Your farms, your relationship with your land, the people you feed, the people you engage with on a daily basis, the water. It's all about relationship. And we have to insert organic everywhere. We are using the power of relationship to change a culture. And you are the change makers changing the culture. I think back to some of the earlier days of my farming engagement and how fortunate in a funny way we were that we actually didn't know much. We had old timers that gave us information. We had the Rodale Institute and their organic gardening, but I mean, we were still using those funny phones, you know, where you go like that and you pay 50 cents a minute to talk to someone. So we really had to learn by getting out there and experimenting, observing, and sharing. That's what we did. And that sharing component was such a critical part of it. It's why we're all here today. We're here sharing. And we don't see this in other parts of agriculture. We don't see it in other parts of our American culture, this concept of sharing knowledge and that we're all in this together. So our capacity to share is so fundamentally part of who we are because we're understanding that this is so much bigger than all of us. It is about inserting organic everywhere. I really saw this kind of come together in 2006 when our farm was threatened by a crude oil pipeline owned by Koch Industries. Joyce mentioned it last night when they received the Farmer of the Year award. And we did two things. We entered in the legal battle and argued that an organic farm is a valuable natural resource based on the benefits, those ecosystem services that we receive every day from our farms. But we also turned to our customers and we said, would you just write a letter to the judge and just say, like, how would you be affected if this one farm was affected? 4,400 people wrote a letter to the judge. I wish I could read those letters to you because it really illustrates this concept of experiment, collaborate, observe, share. These letters were very profound. I didn't realize how educated my customers actually were. They came from every walk of life. They might be a doctor, they might be a journalist, they might be a parent, they might be a professor. They really literally just talked about how their lives intersected with organic, and they were extremely articulate about what the culture of caring means. Caring for land, caring for people, caring for the water, etc. And that's what I really want to leave you with is the fact that we're all working from our own expertise. We don't have to know everything. When I was dealing with the pipeline, I'm dealing with Koch Industries, the largest privately owned company in the world. The Public Utilities Commission, I don't know anything about public utilities, but I do know about organic, and you know about organic. I knew about feeding people. I knew why it mattered. You know that too. And we have to insert that everywhere because what we are fundamentally doing is changing a culture. When I think back 30 years, if the six of us had some fun living room conversation and said, in 30 years, in 2018, what will have happened? We wouldn't have even guessed most of it. And when I think forward to 30 years, I get really excited because we're getting ever closer and closer to the tipping point, and that's all of you going forward. So I hope this Moses Conference does what it does to me of really inspiring me for that next year of going out there and just being that expert that you are and spreading it, inserting organic everywhere.
Thank you, Tina.
lot of us have known each other for a really long time, you know, and we probably did sit in each other's living rooms and speculate about, you know, what we, not necessarily what we foresaw, but what we wanted the world to become. And I think it's important to keep talking about that. But I think about how little structure, you were talking about, we were using phones like this, there was no internet, there was no email, there was the writing of letters and putting them in the post office and finding out that there was a social event happening at the Wiscoy Valley Farm Co-op or down in the Cooley region. And we would make the effort to travel because the force of the magnetism of the shared values that we hold was so potent, so powerful. Like George just said to me, well, it's kind of lonesome out there on the prairie, isn't it? But the wind blows a lot out there, but it blows toward the Cooley region. And so we would, you know, pack up the kids and travel and experience the kinds of conversations and activities and information sharing that we did not get in our home community. And that was a great source of growth for what became the North Country Eco-Agricultural Network. That's where I first met Martin Diffley. I don't even remember what year that was, but it was about 1998 when we started doing organizing with the Sustainable Farming Association of Minnesota, and the many more localized organizations of that time period, because people were so yearning for the sharing of information that was not available in conventional farm information networks. You know, it just was absent. So we'd be pulling Charlie Johnson from the middle of South Dakota to Montevideo, and Fred Kirschman from North Dakota. We'd bring him down to Montevideo, and so that was the beginning of a network for me that led toward the Organic Farming Conference, because that was the big tent. It's where everybody could come, and at whatever level of expertise people had, or knowledge, or connection, they could find a place. They could find the information that they were looking for, and if it wasn't present, they could ask somebody, and you'd find what you needed in short order. But I just want to stress the magnetism of a shared set of values, that in which our activities were rooted, and which has been the thread that has carried this movement, and it needs to get so much bigger if we are to survive in this loving and living planet. So we're just going to be lighting each other's torches, and when you leave from here, there's kind of an energy that happens that sustains you for a long time when you go back out into the world from this conference. And that's something I've experienced over the course of the last maybe 25 years. I haven't been here for 30 years, but Jim's been here for 30 years. Marta Engel has been here for 30 years. Anybody else in this room been here for every organic farming conference?
A couple of them out there.
Two of you? Okay.
Audrey, you talked about the conference being the big tent that really allowed this community to ferment and come together. And I'm wondering if Faye can have an opportunity to tell us about the conference and kind of where it is in the chronology of the actual organization, Moses.
So, the conference is 30 years old, but Moses is 19, and a lot of people don't realize that the conference actually came first. I will say that it was Atina who suggested, we need to brand the conference to Moses, which is why I think there was a disconnect for a long time. People just didn't realize they were connected. But, for those first 10, 11 years, the conference floated around between Organic Valley and OCIA, Dave Engel, And different organizations were kind of hosting it. And at some point, it became really clear, oh, this is going to continue to grow. You know, we had 90 people the first year. We've got 3,000 people now. And Dave Engel really had the wisdom to help pull this organization together and, you know, selected a lot of key people. And I just think it's important to realize that a lot of times we need to get the action started. The conference was kind of the action and the bringing the people together. And then the organization was created, and that was able to build on itself and create, you know, even more educational opportunities. And it just becomes a nice feedback loop.
So Faye, has the Moses Conference always served organic food?
So I want to say yes, of course. This conference has always, but some of you know this, you know, how I actually got involved in this movement. I was a young woman and I was going to be an organic farmer, and, you know, I'd bought my first tractor, and I went to an organic conference in Minnesota. It was actually the OGBA conference. And there was, I mean, no organic food, not one bite. Now, this was like 35 years ago, so this is before this conference started, and it was hard to find organic food. But I felt like if we don't walk the talk, we've got no business. And, you know, I was a really feisty 20-year-old, and I raised a fit.
As opposed
I've
to now.
mellowed so
Yeah.
much, if any of you knew me back then. And I mean, I really raised a fit. And they said, fine, get on the committee, Faye, you make it happen. And I said, I will. And I want to say some of the first organic food was chicken from Welsh's Chicken Farm, and they were just wonderful to work with. I think they even donated like thousands of dollars worth of chickens, and it was my entrance into this world was to actually start calling people up, trying to get donations, and then trying to get a caterer that would deal with this because they were all saying no. And by the way, if a caterer ever says no, they can't deal with it, put up your hands and say, okay, I'll find someone else. And they will chase after you. I think nowadays it's a lot more accepted. And, you know, just one thing led to another. And, you know, they started serving organic food. But then I moved to Wisconsin, had a baby, you know, and I got a phone call one day out of the blue from Dave Engel. And he said, hey, we're thinking about starting a Wisconsin organic farming conference over in La Crosse. We heard you know something about helping with food, and we want to bring you on board. And I said, sure. No money. I wasn't expecting money. I think we were all volunteers at that point. And that was how I stepped in to being here. And now, I mean, this is just a wealth of organic food, and it's good food, so.
Yeah, thanks very much. The whole notion of stepping up is one that keeps on coming up. You know, I keep on hearing this as we're going forward. So, Francis, some reflections on what you've heard so far and kind of your spot.
Well, it's interesting to think about how the organic movement grew. And Atina, when I was a kid, we didn't dial like this. We dialed like this. And some of you probably don't know what that means, but that was Minnesota. But I started farming organically in 1975 with my brothers. My father wasn't real happy with that. And we were considered to be kooky. And that's kind of what organic farmers were, hippies and kookies back then. But after about 9 years, I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school and to spread the good news to the universities, you know. And well, I remember early on, I talked to my soil fertility teacher, and I spent about 3 minutes talking about organic, and he had this blank look on his face, and finally he said, well, it depends upon how far back in the horse and buggy era you want to go. And so that was really the attitude back then. And so I never said another word in 6 years of graduate school that I had been an organic farmer. And even when I went to USDA in Washington for 4 years, I never told anybody, my colleagues, that I had been an organic farmer, because I didn't want to get thrown out of the room. Because even back then, in like 1988, sustainable agriculture was considered heresy. Scientists that were working on sustainable agriculture were really off the reservation. But then money came. In 1988, there was the LISA program, Low Input Sustainable Agriculture. Suddenly there was money, and now the researchers were getting a little interested. And as that grew, they got more and more interested. And I think it's about 2003 when money became available for organic research. And suddenly now everybody's starting to get on the bandwagon. And that's a real change to see that happen. And really because of all of you being successful organic farmers that really built the whole movement. As I said, when I left USDA in 1992, I hadn't told them I had been an organic farmer. But in 2002, 10 years later, I had the opportunity to speak before the U.S. Senate Ag Committee, and somehow I talked to one of my old colleagues at USDA, and he signed me up for a seminar to my friends back there. And I told them the whole story, you know, organic, on-farm, local processing, local sales, and they loved it. The same people who before thought it was crazy, suddenly in 2002, it was different. And so, you know, we really built a huge movement here, and we're bringing a lot of people along with us. I think maybe I'll stop there and turn it over to George.
Well, a lot of subjects here to cover. So first, I'm positive the first organic conference served organic food because we brought it in. We had it at a beer hall, no beer, by the way. And but I assure you we did. After that, I don't know, but I know the first one we did. So, you know, first off, you know, when we started Organics Valley and we started this conference, the first thing you realize is how eager people were to share what they've learned. All organics was pioneered by pioneers, farmers, people, food, nutritionists, and so there was such a yearning, somebody used the word yearning, to share what they've learned, and it's still here today. It's very exciting in the crowd here. The speakers are farmers or people, so I think that's a real essence here, is that yearning to learn, the discovery that we're doing. We're leaders now, and we're leaders for something that's very needed in our society. It's gone from us trying to find our place to realizing our place, which is to lead into a better world. We have a world that is failing at so many levels. So this conference is very, very important for our society. And, you know, it's really important with organics that we're constantly thinking about continued improvement. It never ends. I mean, I always tell people when a farmer goes organic, they get reborn as a farmer because they get excited again. They get to think for themselves. They get to be engaged. And of course, one of my favorite things is to see the youth of organic farmers, how engaged they are in farming. So we face a lot of change in the future. Society is changing very, very fast. And when we started this conference, organics were kind of like the most important part of society. Today, farmers are losing their standing in our society and our power in politics. And so it's so important that we speak up as caretakers of the land to our society. So, yeah. So I got here a little late. I got in the lunch line, and a nice gentleman from the UP Michigan in front of me, he says, "This is great." And I had to ask him, because we're right there, the food. He said, "The food or the conference?" It's the conference. I just love this conference. He was so happy to be here. And then I was in the bathroom. A lot of urinal conversations happen anyway. So the guy says, "This is awesome, awesome." And I asked him, "What's awesome?" in the conference. So wow, now that's about as good a report card as you'll get here. So we want that. Somebody asked, where do you want to be in 2049? Boy, that's a big question, but we want that enthusiasm still be here. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, George. Many of you grew up in farming. I did not. I grew up in the Bronx and spent my time in the tenements of the Bronx and on the streets of Spanish Harlem. I spent my life in communications and into farming late. But I think one of the things that impresses me is that whatever it is that you're doing, you have something to give to this. Some of you, I know I've met a very enthusiastic young woman who's going through a couple of degrees, I think, in political science and in learning how to lobby. And I'm thinking, yes, yes, we need that. Because as Jim Riddle has told us, we were the ones who went to Washington and set the standards. We have to stick with the standards, and as George just said, this has to keep on going forward. when we got the standards, it wasn't that they should be carved in stone. It was that they set a bar that we have to keep on pushing. And some of us are going to be replaced by many of you. Well, eventually all of us are going to be replaced by you in this movement going forward. Jim, one of the things you said is we went to Washington. So if you're looking for Washington to come save you, how many think that's going to happen? Show of hands. Not going to happen. And it's because of community, as described by Atina and by Faye. That's how it's going to happen. You have to step forward. You have to come forward with a solution. Nobody's going to save you. They are not going to save you, and they're not going to make it organic standards better. You are. Audrey, you've talked about, in your life, you've got the farm and the art and the various disciplines that come together. All these things work together to make the culture that you talked about. It's the culture. And so as we kind of start wrapping up here, we're coming towards the end of the time that we have. I guess I'd like another couple of minutes from each one of you, again, about kind of the message you want people to kind of walk away with. Because this is not about, this is the old guys, and then there's everybody else. But this is about a continuum. It's more of a relay race than anything else. Jim, why don't you start?
Oh, sure. One thing I really like about the Moses Conference is for years now, since there has been money and interest in organic research, the researchers have been embraced here. I mean, farmers learn best from other farmers. We know that. And that's embedded into how the workshops are formulated. But now there are researchers who have real knowledge and findings to contribute. And this is one of the conferences where the research is really integrated. And I think that is so healthy in both directions. And it used to be, you couldn't find anyone in Extension who could even talk about organic, but now there are people who are knowledgeable and helpful. And organic is not going back to the horse and buggy. It's cutting edge science. There's nothing more sophisticated than understanding how the earth and natural systems work and how we can produce healthy, abundant food in harmony with those systems. So that's one thing. And it really gives me a great encouragement to hear the new awareness just in the last few years of soil health, the soil ecosystem, and how dependent on healthy soil that we are. The one thing that bothers me, if I could, is that now organic, the USDA is allowing soilless hydroponic operations to be certified organic. And if we don't need soil, why do we care about soil health? And I think we need to take action to make sure that hydroponic is fine, but it's not organic, and they're cashing in on everything that we've created. And that needs to end. That's an existential threat to the very thing that we have created. And you don't have to go out to Washington on your own. There are groups that you can join, such as the Organic Farmers Association, or if you're part of the trade, certainly the OTA, the Organic Trade Association, National Organic Coalition, Land Stewardship Project. There are all these different groups that you can be a part of that fit kind of where you're coming from in your heart or your neighbors. But I come back to being engaged. And it used to be, I used to know everybody at the Moses Conference. Back when it was 90, 100, 120 people. Now I don't know everybody, and I love it. I love seeing all the new faces, and it gives me such hope. All the young people and the enthusiasm and the childcare and the people sharing ideas. And I always walk away from this conference uplifted and ready to do my part.
Well, I once heard someone from the USDA say that organic is about a market. It's a different marketing vehicle. And I just started laughing, like you really didn't get it. And so many of us right now, there's some scary stuff happening right now in the market. There's a lot of markets that are actually collapsing or dealing with extreme competition, et cetera. And I think it's really fundamental that we understand that organic is a movement. The market is one vehicle we use to accomplish some of our goals. It's one way we reach people. It's one way we finance our operations. We've talked a lot about these early days, and before anybody's farm could thrive, we had this long period of development. We had to develop distribution systems. We had to develop knowledge. I will never forget the first university researcher that came to our farm because they were entomologists. They were the first ones that I saw actually get it. They got it before the soil scientists did in our relationships. They came out and they just came out to count. They flagged off like a 5 square foot section in the middle of a field and they counted bugs. And they would come in, those entomologists are so geeky. They would come in so excited. They would say, do you know, we found 20 minute pirate beetles per square foot in your cabbage field. And I'm like, what's a minute pirate beetle? I didn't even know what any of these bugs were. And so they were like, where did you buy them? We didn't buy them. Well, they were like, where did they come from? I was like, you're the scientist, you tell me. They just really didn't believe that we didn't buy them. But I was starting to get it because we lost our first farm to development. And when that happened, they developed it over a period of 3 years. They said, you can farm these 2/3 and we'll develop this one. And then next year we'll take another third and you can still have this one. And then in 3 years, you're just out of here. And they thought they were being kind to give us this prolonged period. Well, they came in, and we were a diverse farm, 120 acres, rolling hills. There was maybe 25 tillable little fields tucked into what was still an undamaged ecosystem. Had been in the family 5 years, since 1850s, so 5 generations, and hadn't been destroyed. I was a young woman. I didn't really understand. We didn't even have the phrase ecosystem services and biological diversity. Those weren't being used yet. I don't think I had heard them. So I actually thought, what's the big deal? This is really easy. You know, we put the seed in and we weed and harvest, and it was easy. It was hard work physically, but I was energetic. And the easy part was that we had such a diverse landscape that the management of our pests and diseases was actually pretty easy. But when they came in and took that first section, they took every tree, every bush, every blade of grass. They sold the living soil. We were farming adjacent to land that had no life. When it would rain, there was no life to take in the water. It just ran off and destroyed our crops. We were overrun by pests that I'd never seen, I didn't know existed. That was when I started to understand, like at this soul level, something I'd probably heard about in grade school, you know, how the trees make air and we need the trees because they help us. And I got it. We witnessed an ecological collapse. That's what we're talking about. That's what we are all addressing. And when those entomologists came in and said, where did these minute pirate bugs came from, I got it. We had brought some more diversity back to our landscape. That is all we had done. And it brought in all these insects. And then they went back to the U and they said to the soil people, hey, you should go check out this farm. We found this. So the soil folks came out and they said, well, let us see your soil tests. And we showed them and they said, well, you're deficient in this, this, and that. Let's go see your plants. We'll see it in your plants. It'll show in your leaves. And we got out to the fields and they were, well, your plants look really good. You know, and we were like, well, we don't really know how this works, but we think that this this biological life in our soil is transferring nutrients back and forth and that we don't need as high of levels. And I said, we are experimenting, but we believe we can function on lower soil tests than you would expect in a chemical system. And it actually took us about 10 years before we got a researcher, a soil scientist, who agreed with us. So I just really want you to just keep going out there and holding that spirit that you're experimenters. You're observing and you're sharing. You're just inserting that everywhere, whether it's a journalist you talk to, whether it's your daycare provider, whether it's your doctor, My doctor always asks me medical questions. I'm like, why does she think I know that? So share it, share it, share it.
So I want to kind of reiterate what a number of us have said up here, which is I don't think any of us imagined 40 years ago that there would be 3,000 people at this conference and that the industry, the movement, would have grown to what it has and that there would be this kind of shared, sustained experience. But in order for us to keep moving and to affect more change and real change, we need to have change in our federal policy, our Farm Bill and our agricultural policy. And that change isn't going to happen without a lot of work. I know there have been numerous organizations that have worked for 30 and 40 years to change basic farm policies that still aren't there. Organic is still a niche, and until we really affect these federal policies, and I say all that because the only way to affect this is for all of you to step out of your comfort zone, make phone calls, develop a relationship with your representatives. You know, keep patting people like Tammy Baldwin and Brad Paff on the back and encourage them, because we aren't going to really affect the kind of biological, earth-changing that we all want and we all believe in unless more people step up. And I just, you know, I know this is my last 2 cents I get to say up here, so I just want to say.
So picking up on what Jim and Faye have been saying, that we need to be active. And I just wanted to ask, how many people here are members of the Organic Farmers Association? Great. And if you don't know about it, I think it's very important that you do. It's an organization just for organic farmers. Basically, anybody can become a member, but only organic farmers can vote on policy issues. And it's actually pretty effective, I think. We've gone to Washington last year, and we met with some of the staff of, for example, the Senate Ag Committee. And we met them, and they had been lobbied to do some major destruction to USDA National Organic Program. And as we talked to them, Jim was there, we had about 5 NOSP members, current and former. They began to soften. By the end of the meeting, they were just asking us these questions, and these things didn't manifest. I mean, the owners ones did not. So I think we were very effective. And we saw in the Farm Bill, not that we didn't get those things. We also saw increases in organic funding. And I think that also we regularly talk to the National Organic Program staff, and I think we're making some headway there, because we know that we've heard that there are more lobbyists for big food in Washington than there are for all the military, and so we're up against a big thing here. They are actually, the lobbyists are in the offices of USDA regularly. They camp out. And here we're out farming, and we can't meet that. So we have to band together and do this. And yesterday I was talking to Atina, I think it was, you said that we thought that the industrial agriculture was going to someday self-destruct. And we're seeing that hasn't happened. And what's happening now that we're a $50 billion industry in organic is they've looked over here, and we're growing faster than anybody else, and they want a piece of the pie. Actually, they want the whole pie. And they're working hard to get it. And like with hydroponics, this is something that they lobbied their way through against the advice of the NOSP in the past. And so we really have to find a way to stop this. Because now we know that if you go in the grocery store and buy an organic tomato, chances are it's hydroponic. But will it say hydroponic? No, it won't say that. And so I'm going to take this one step further and tell you about an organization that you may know briefly, the Real Organic Project, which was started by about 3 dozen pioneer organic farmers. And the idea is that we need to bring the standards back to where they were with the Organic Foods Production Act. We need to outlaw hydroponics. We need to stop these CAFOs. Eggs, estimates are that 80% of the organic eggs in the store are CAFO. We know that much of the milk comes from confinement dairies that are 10,000 cows and so on. And so the Real Organic Project is an add-on certification. You have to be certified organic. With that add-on, the standards are that you can't be hydroponic, you cannot have CAFO chickens, you cannot have CAFO milk. And those are the main things. But anyway, I would encourage you to look into that, because we need to have a way to communicate to our consumers what real organic is. And we think most of you, all of you probably, are real organic. It's not that you aren't. There's only a very small proportion that really are violating the rules egregiously, but they have a huge amount of the total sales. So that's my little pitch. I hope I didn't go too far here today.
Some of what made the Organic Act in Congress possible, and that made the Clean Water Act possible, and that made the Civil Rights Act possible, is something we used to call the power of the people. And right now we're in a situation where we do a fair amount of farm tours at our place, and some of you probably do too. And what I find is that people who are, the Minnesota Master Naturalists or the Garden Club or people who care about biological diversity haven't really connected the things that they value to farming systems. That's our job. The people who care about the increases in autism and other diseases that are symptomatic of the deterioration of environmental quality have not connected their primary concerns with agricultural systems. That's our job. The people who, I do a lot of work at the Capitol in Minnesota with water quality, and a lot of the people who really want to see the Minnesota River cleaned up and who want to keep nitrogen and other contaminants from entering the groundwater, especially in the karst region, have not necessarily connected the way agriculture happens and what they eat to the quality of the water. That's our job. So don't let go of those responsibilities. Carry that torch and light all those other torches, because yesterday, how many people here were in the future of agriculture conversation yesterday? Pretty few, pretty lot of you. And what we foresaw for what we most would like to see, what needs to happen, or we're all doomed. What needs to happen in agriculture is going to require a much broader base than we have now. So take those messages out into every avenue, into your church, into your school, wherever you can, with more ardor than you ever thought you could muster up, and just do it.
Well, listening to everybody, heard a kind of common theme, and that was that when we entered organic, it was all about our own discovery, and nature's our teacher, and science was almost an enemy or an opposite of what we wanted. But I just got to comment on the video we saw before we started, because we really need to know science is now our friend. Science is going to show the value of organics and the harm of chemicals like we've never imagined. We are so well positioned for the future, and we really have a duty to be here and to be refining the science. So we talk a lot about markets and standards, but we need to remember where we stand in the long arc. And science is going to come to our rescue, which is rather odd because we never cared about science. So it's good to see. I was just in Europe and went to an organic conference there. And, Europe is very interesting. In Europe, they're very concerned a much broader definition of organic. And I think if my party message is we need to broaden our message about the meaning of what organics is. We need to, first off, if we're organic farmers, we should be eating organic food. We need to say, how do farmers get paid fair? They have a fair seal over there for how much farmers get paid. They have a program for do employees and farmers get treated fairly. They have gone further than just how it's produced, but to an organic lifestyle. And I think it's really important that we broaden that, because the consumer's looking to us as agriculture gets more and more industrial. They're looking to us to be taking care of all the concerns they have. And so I think it's really important that organic means that integrating the parts into a whole. So that's more than just regulations. It's our role now to take organics to the future to be a much broader movement. So thank you.
Well, I wanted to thank all our panelists again. I mean, how do you thank somebody for 35, 40, 50 years of getting something moving and off the ground and putting it into such a strong spot that we can pick it up and move it forward, because that is our responsibility to make it always better. Lots of people get into organic to leave this earth a better place than what they found it. Not only for the soil and the water, but for their community and for their family and for their livestock. And these people are very, very representative of that ethic. As George just said, it's more than about the standard. It's about the spirit and the philosophy behind a holistic system. So these people have lived it and are willing to work with everybody else in the room to move all of this forward. So thank you once again. All right. Jim, why don't you go down that way? He's going down that way. And now we have one more special guest, so keep your seats. We're not done. We're not done. We actually have this opportunity to hear from Wisconsin's agricultural secretary. So please, this is one of those people who we really need and who is really supportive of us. So please, why don't you keep your seat? We have with us Wisconsin's new agricultural secretary, Brad Pfaff, who's taken time from his busy schedule to be with us today. He has supported organic agriculture for many years, working with Congressman Ron Kind, who chairs the House Organic Caucus. Secretary Pfaff has recommended funding in the upcoming state budget that supports the sustainable and organic farming communities. We're very glad to have you here, Secretary Pfaff.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll be honest with you, it's my first time here as Wisconsin's Secretary of Agriculture. I've only been on the job for 7 weeks, but I am proud to say that I've been at this conference for a number of years, and it's great to be with a lot of friends. It was great to see George Siemon earlier. Obviously, to hear Jim Riddle speak and his passion was just excellent. Thank you, Jim. Joyce, congratulations. Great job. Faye Jones, everything she's done for this conference, everything she's done for organic agriculture. Thank you, Faye. I salute you. I was raised on a small dairy farm about 25 miles from here in northern La Crosse County. My family's been dairy farming in this country since they came here in the 1800s. Agriculture is who I am as a person. I love agriculture. I love rural communities. I love rural people. But a lot's going on out there right now. You know it and I know it. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. Sadly, in the state of Wisconsin, we're losing about 2 farms a day. They're going out of business. We've got people that we're worried about their health, their physical and their mental health. There's an emotional strain that's happening. But I've met with a lot of people in the 7 weeks I've been on this job, and again, I'm so honored that Governor Tony Evers has given me this opportunity. And the optimism and excitement that's out there is real. We hear a lot about the emotional strain, and that's real. But there's a lot of optimism and there's a lot of excitement. Let me tell you 3 things that have really become apparent to me in this job. Number one, there's a tremendous desire to farm. People want to farm. Now, they may not want to farm exactly the way their parents farm, or those that are currently on the existing farm currently operate, but they want to farm. I want to help them get on that farm to live their dream. And I want to work with you on that. Thank you. Number two, people want to know where their food comes from. They want to know what's on their dinner table, what they're eating, what their kids are eating. We have a tremendous product to sell, a tremendous product to present. It's amazing. Now, obviously, I'm very proud of all of Wisconsin agriculture. And I think we in Wisconsin and we in the upper Midwest have tremendous products to sell. But there's a tremendous product that we have that comes from our farm fields, from our hard work. And let's make sure that we give those consumers opportunities to enjoy that. The third thing that I've learned, and I've learned an awful lot, the third thing I've learned is the definition of the term capital. And what does that word mean? Well, we know about financial capital. It takes money to enter agriculture. However, there's opportunities, and that's why I'm so excited about programs like grazing and other opportunities to get people into agriculture at a lower cost. Well, we all recognize the term financial capital. Human capital. We have to invest in ourselves. We need to take time to take care of ourselves and invest in ourselves. Provide those skill sets that we need. Just allow us to self-reflect and recognize that we're doing the best we can. But there's also social capital. And that is building networks, building friendships, bonding with one another. Agriculture can be quite lonely at times. We need to make sure that we come together, we bond, we develop relationships, we network like we're doing here today. And then there's something called community capital. We're all in a larger community. We need to make sure that we invest in that community capital. That can be things like, quite frankly, making sure that we've got a main street, a rural main street. Making sure that we recognize our small towns and the importance of these small towns. Farmers need small towns and rural communities need farmers. We need to recognize that we're in this together. We need to work on public policy to make sure that for our small towns, our small communities, and our family farmers, it goes together. So recognize the term capital. Yes, there's financial capital, there's personal, human capital, there's social capital, but there's the community capital. We're in this together. This job's bigger than me, a lot bigger than me. But I'm as excited as someone can be. I get the opportunity to travel this state, to meet with family farmers, soil conservationists, people that live in rural communities. I get the opportunity to tell our story. What a great job. I sure hope I can continue to come and listen and learn from you. I learned an awful lot from my mom and dad, but one of the things my mom taught me early on, and she taught me this: Brad, you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Make sure you listen twice as much as you speak. But they also told me this, my mom and dad. They said, remember where you come. They said, you don't know where you're going to go unless you know where you come. I know where I come. I come from that small town. Our farm is 4 miles away from that small town in northern La Crosse County, which is approximately 25 miles from here. It's an honor to be here, but it's also an honor to work with my colleagues at the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet some of my colleagues at DATCAP, I encourage you to stop by and say hello. Angie Sullivan, Charlotte Litchens, Keitra Olson, Jeff Swenson, and we also have our team from Food and Recreational Safety here. Please stop by the DATCAP booth and say hello, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Good. All right, with that, we'll be letting you go here. I just want to give you a couple quick announcements. Thank you, Brad, thank you, Tammy, and thank you everyone on the panel, our board, everyone. I want you all to know that the next workshop is happening at 3:30. After that, we have a cash bar and social that'll be happening in the back here. Make sure to check that out because we've got Prairie Organic Spirits and Hoke Orchard hard cider, both at a really reduced rate, so those should be pretty fun. We're also going to be having a square dance right here this evening. Some of these chairs will be disappearing between now and then, so there's lots of room for us all to have a big community shindig. And then also in the South Hall on the upper level, we will be having a special screening of Dreaming of a Better World. That tells the story of Moses' 2011 Farmers of the Year, the Vetters. And afterwards is going to be a don't miss Q&A with Dave Vetter, filmmaker Bonnie Hawthorne, and also Teresa Podol and Ken Roseborough, and probably a few surprise guests who are running around this conference right now. So that'll be in the upper level of the South Hall. I also forgot to mention that both Valent and Kubota are right outside the doors here. They are very important to us, and you should stop by and check out that tractor. I think they even let you touch it. I could go for one of those. And then, yeah, just a reminder that that next workshop starts at 3:30, so go ahead, shake a leg, grab some cheese on your way. All right. Have fun, everyone.